It is finally happening. People are starting to wake up and realize what a bad deal this settlement is that NAR has negotiated on behalf of brokerages and real estate agents writ large. Brian here with Lamacchia Realty, and I've got some fresh, hot news off the presses that happened yesterday. Actually, it might have been 2 days ago at this point, regarding MLSPIN. Now, MLSPIN is my local MLS, so I'm very excited to learn more about this. But it really is aligning with the NWMLS, the Northwest MLS, which I covered last week, which is really, they decided to opt out of the NAR settlement because it's just a bad deal for everyone all around. Consumers, buyers, sellers, agents, across the board. It's just a big mess. So MLSPIN is also in thinking the same way, and as a result, they are urging the courts to basically throw out that decision. So let's get into it. The MLSPIN urges Nosalek judge to approve settlement agreement. The Nosalek commission lawsuit defendant does not agree with the DOJ's policy proposal in its statement of interest. In a legal brief filed on Monday, MLSPIN made it clear that it does not agree with the Department of Justice's position on the banning of cooperative compensation as outlined in the DOJ's statement of interest in the Nosalek Commission lawsuit. The DOJ became involved in the Nosalek suit in late September 2023, intervening over what it described as, quote, significant concerns about the terms of the settlement agreement that MLSPIN and the Nosalek plaintiffs reached in June 2023. So if you remember back in June 2023, MLSPIN said, okay, well, no longer will the seller be compelled to offer any type of buyer agent compensation, so you can now leave that field blank, or you could put a 0 in there for compensation, and you are no longer going to be, whereas in the past, you had to have, like, I think, like $1, right? So we went from $1 to 0. So just remember that. In its most recent brief, MLSPIN stated that it had reached a, quote, fair and reasonable settlement that fully resolves the disputed antitrust claims plaintiffs have asserted in this litigation. It added that it believes the DOJ is effectively looking to hold a trial on the merits of the settlement. DOJ never denies that courts should avoid deciding uncertain legal questions at the settlement stage, the brief states, and DOJ even tacitly acknowledges that approving a class settlement does not require resolving good faith disagreements as to whether the settlement perpetuates allegedly anti-competitive practices. To the contrary, a class settlement and an antitrust action should be rejected as anti-competitive only when it perpetuates obvious, quote, per se antitrust violations under previously decided cases. Exactly. According to the reply brief, MLSPIN believes that DOJ's core position is that, quote, no settlement should be approved unless it affirmatively prohibits home sellers from offering compensation to buyer side brokers, no matter whether the offer occurs on the MLS or off of it, for example, on a broker's website. The multiple listing service noted that the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court has recognized buyer-broker commissions for more than 100 years. Okay, so this is nothing new that the real estate industry is doing. It's been in the books now for over 100 years. Not only are these practices approved, but they are widely recognized as beneficial to consumers, particularly first-time homebuyers and others at risk of exclusion from the housing market. It is little wonder that DOJ's position has been met with swift criticism by experts who say that it is, quote, the worst possible outcome for millions of homebuyers. I have been beating that drum for months. It is a bad deal for first-time homebuyers. It's a bad deal for sellers. It's a bad deal for buyers in general, right? Because it's going to force them to come out of pocket when they're already coming up with tons of money out of pocket as it is. MLSPIN also contends that, quote, nothing in the proposed settlement between plaintiffs and MLSPIN would limit DOJ's ability to pursue changes to real estate market practices in Massachusetts or anywhere else through legislative advocacy or administrative rulemaking. Interesting. So what they're saying is, like, you are way outside of your lane on this one, DOJ. The reply goes on to state that the entirety of DOJ's statement sounds in the realm of policy and should be addressed to those bodies responsible for crafting statutes and regulations, namely Congress or the Federal Trade Commission. Here, the DOJ is not in the lawmaking business. That is not what they do. They are there to investigate certain situations. If there's situations of anti-competitive behavior, they've done that. They've provided their analysis, and it is flat out wrong, right? So finally, we have another MLS, not finally, but we have another MLS that is saying the same type of things that I have been saying and many others within the real estate industry have been saying for months. No laws were broken. This is not collusion. There's no evidence of any of this crap. This is literally a cash grab by that personal injury attorney out in Kansas. Additionally, MLSPIN claims that the statistics the DOJ uses to defend its arguments, quote, fail to measure up, arguing that the DOJ's, quote, economic analysis is not replicable and therefore little more than junk economics. Exactly. The case that the Department of Justice has used to defend itself is just a whole bunch of garbage like thrown together, and then they think that if they say it, then it must be true. But when you try and replicate what they've, the facts that they've given, it's just not true. It's just not. So it does not hold up. It doesn't pass the sniff test, as they say. In contrast, MLSPIN argues that the amicus briefs filed by the Council of Multiple Listing Service and Northwest MLS, quote, provides compelling explanation for why DOJ's policy arguments fail on their own terms. MLSPIN also noted that it fully adopts these two briefs. So I'll leave a link to that in the description, but basically it destroyed what the DOJ was saying. And they use like real empirical data, real hard numbers to show that what they were claiming was 100% not true. Furthermore, the brief states that the policies proposed by the DOJ in its statement of interest go, quote, far beyond what antitrust law requires, and that they create an antitrust problem for MLSPIN, as it claims that it cannot enter into an agreement to ban the publication for free market compensation offers without offending the very antitrust principles DOJ claims to be protecting. Exactly. So it's like, which one do you want? Pick one. It makes no sense whatsoever. To impose such a ban through a federal injunction would also suppress speech that is protected under the First Amendment. DOJ never denies that sellers have the right to compensate buyer brokers. It only advocates arbitrary restraints on the communication of compensation offers. But the payment of buyer broker commissions has long been legal under Massachusetts and federal law. The reply continues. Exactly. So what the settlement is you can still offer that compensation, but you just can't put it in MLS. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Absolutely not. Like, if you're going to offer it, and it should be transparent. So this settlement is a step in the wrong direction. You want it out there so everyone can see what it is, and then buyers can make a decision whether they want to pursue the property or not strictly based off of that buyer broker compensation, but if they are working with a buyer broker, they have all the information available to them. It just makes sense. This proposal to ban truthful and non-misleading speech made in furtherance of a lawful activity runs headlong into a string of Supreme Court cases recognizing that such bans cannot survive First Amendment scrutiny. As a result of these perceived issues, MLSPIN argues that the court should reject the DOJ's policy arguments and, quote, instead advance transparency in the Massachusetts real estate market by approving the proposed settlement. And then it goes on there and talks a little bit more about the Nosalek case. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on this. Is this a good move by MLSPIN to side itself with Northwest MLS? Now that we have two major brokerages, actually three if you consider California as well, because I think they're kind of starting to step away from that NAR settlement. Do you think there will be more MLSs stepping forward and saying, you know what, these guys are spot on. I'm going to opt out of this NAR settlement, and I'm going to continue to advertise that buyer broker compensation? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, if you did enjoy content like this, kindly ask that you smash the like button and maybe subscribe to the channel for future content like this. Thanks for watching. Take care.